What's going on, everybody? This is Luca here, the producer and co-host of the Movie Pope podcast. And today's episode is actually a rebroadcast of the Christmas special that we originally had planned for 2025, and it was our review of Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning. Now, what happened was we got struck for copyright material, and nobody was able to see the video, so that had to be deleted, and we had to re-edit it and upload it again for this Friday's episode. So I just want to give everybody a heads up that what you're seeing today is the really, really heavily edited down version of our review. Um, I, I, I do plan on uploading this to Patreon and Rumble, so if you can, be sure to subscribe and stay up to date on what we're doing, because what our plan is, once we have get our channel set up on different platforms such as Rumble, we'll be able to air the original cuts of these review episodes as they were meant to be. So, I mean, it's not ideal, but at the same time, it's one of those things where we kind of have to work with YouTube, because YouTube is the biggest platform. And hopefully there will come a time when we will be able to air these episodes without any issue, because we did appeal it. It got rejected. We were appealing it under the Fair Use Act, because really all we're doing is just commenting on certain clips of the movie that didn't make sense and actually made the movie far worse than it actually was. And just so you know, Lee and I, whenever we plan these, which movie we're going to review, Lee actually goes through the movie, twice or even three times just to find the right clips that he wants to use to emphasize his point. So, for us to, go through this process again and to have to, give you a product that isn't up to scratch and isn't exactly up to what we had in mind, it's a bit of a downer for him as well, because that means all the work he went through to try to find the clips in order to have them show up at the right moment whenever we're emphasizing a certain point, such as Hayley Atwell's cleavage. That kind of gets tossed, to the side, because obviously there are some people out there who don't really understand or don't really care. And I suspect maybe it's because they just don't like the fact that we didn't really find this movie quite attractive. So here is the edited version in full of our Christmas special, our review of Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning. Like I said, again, we do plan on getting a Patreon page and a Rumble account set up so you can watch the original cut. And like I said, if you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button when you get these notifications from us, you'll know when the original cuts are uploaded and you can check these out. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Hello and Merry Christmas to one and all, or Happy Holidays to you non-religious types. Here at the Movie Pope podcast, we are celebrating Christmas with our family and friends, but we've decided to take a little bit of time away to do our review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning as part of our Christmas special. And just like with Halloween and Thanksgiving, it's a double header. We will be taking a look at The Final Reckoning, and then the robot will be looking at Ghost Protocol. So be sure to stick around and just see what he's got to say about this movie from 2011. But before we dive in, remember to like, comment, subscribe. I mean, we're getting close to the end of 2025. I mean, we've grown a fair bit, and we would like to keep growing and maybe hit the acceleration button. So if you can, share this video and this podcast with everybody that you know. We've got a lot of content out there. And if you want to check out previous episodes, we have playlists organized by seasons that you can check out, starting from season 1 all the way up to season 5, which we're currently in at the moment. But without further ado, let's dive in here. So The Final Reckoning, now originally this was supposed to be Dead Reckoning Part 2. We did a review of that last year, and then they decided, well, we're just going to call it The Final Reckoning. And obviously there's no implication by calling it The Final Reckoning, because what sort of conclusion could you draw from that? But, as with these Mission Impossible movies, these are impossibly long, at close to 3 hours, right? And this movie in particular was the swan song of the franchise. And what kind of bothered me a bit was it seemed to focus less on what was actually happening in the movie and more of callbacks to all these events from the
Yes.
previous movies, you know?
Okay, I'm glad I wasn't alone in that, because as I was watching this, I was just like, oh, did we really need to like retcon that? Did we have to like insert this connection with the previous one? Like, was everyone just clamoring for this Mission Impossible universe to have like this really like delicate weaving of all these pieces coming together at the end? Like, no, like I just wanted a nice send off to the character of Ethan Hunt, which, you know, I mean, I've loved the Mission Impossible since the first one. Not going to say that they were all great, right? I'm looking at you, second one, that kind of sticks out in my brain as not being as good. But, you know, the first one was a great start, just such a, you know, kind of like cool premise. And, you know, as a kid growing up and watching it, I'm like, damn, this is awesome. You know, love this. You know, it kind of starts off in a totally unexpected way that you don't know what to expect, and it leaves you kind of guessing a lot throughout it. So it's something that I've enjoyed way back when, and to hear like kind of all the callbacks just didn't really make sense to me. So, but hey, I guess we'll talk about that when we get there. But
Yeah,
a lot to chat about in this nearly, like you said, 3 hour long movie.
I mean, it's all fluff basically, and what I find kind of interesting is the fact that, you know, I guess somehow the directors thought, well, if you hadn't seen, you know, the previous 7 movies, here's the basic summary of everything that happened in those
Yep.
movies within this time period. And I'm thinking, well, if you've gotten this far and you haven't seen the other 7 movies, then that's on you. Like, I mean, I don't know what to tell you other than, you know, maybe block out an entire day. I don't know, maybe call out sick or whatever, and then just watch the past 7 movies and then dive into the
Yeah.
final reckoning.
Yeah.
But another thing, I mean, when Mission Impossible first came out in '96, I mean, this was basically, I guess you could say like a reboot or a reimagining of the series from the 1960s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it introduced us with Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt and the Impossible Missions forces. And as you know, as the years progressed, I mean, a lot of what they were doing was pretty much high stakes, like, you know, this happens, the country, you know, is threatened. Ethan Hunt is going to save the world, and then as
Yes.
as the robot will exposit very shortly in his review of Ghost Protocol. Starting with Ghost Protocol, we see a continuity thread in terms of the narrative, right? Which, you know, which starts off with, you know, a crazy villain who just wants to see the world burn through a nuclear annihilation, to 2025, where we see a crazed villain who wants to see the world destroyed through nuclear annihilation.
Mm.
So clearly, during that 16-year run, there really wasn't that much of a change in terms of what the villain's goals were.
Hey,
Um,
dude, nukes always make a story great, right? That's what I can learn from this. It's always about the nukes, man.
yeah, all you got to do is just swap out the villain from a crazed Russian strategist to AI, and bam, there you go.
I've seen
But
war games. I know how this all works.
well, we shall see. So, Lee, without further ado, I mean, because this was because we originally were going to do a review of this as part of the season 5 starter, but just due to a lot of things happening, we ended up pushing it back to the state. And I'm actually kind of glad we did, because it actually makes it a lot more enjoyable to talk about it during Christmas, December 25th. So, Lee, without further ado, why don't you take us into Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it, because man, was this was, I mean, let me not sit here like, you know, the last one, right? The part one that's not really a part one, which I'm guessing they're gonna change the name because it seems stupid to call it um, part one now. But I mean, you know, I enjoyed it. It felt a little bit maybe too bombastic, maybe just doing a little bit too much. I think overall, I recall enjoying it for the most part, and you know, doing this, you know, doesn't do anything really negative. Not really, right? I think there's a few things that I will definitely poke some holes in, which I'm sure you'll have some agreements with me about. But you know, as I got into this, I was excited to see how this would all end, right? Because, you know, for Mission Impossible and the character of Ethan Hunt, we've been seeing him doing this for nearly 30 years now. Tom Cruise was there. Is like, man, he looks super young in that first one, and man, now it's like he's still out there kicking ass, right? No shade at all against Tom Cruise. Dude's out there doing great for his age. But it does feel like eventually you have to turn the page or do something different, and this felt like an inappropriate send-off for it, right? So the movie opens up, right, and we get some, I'm just going to say some ego stroking for Ethan Hunt, because we have the president chatting with him, and it's pretty much, as he kind of pointed out, right, it's like, hey, cool, remember all these other movies that you did where you're awesome? Well, thank you for, saving the world countless times, right? So I have nothing to call it other than, hey, it's a little bit of ego stroking for Ethan Hunt. But I get it, if you saved the world a few times, you probably deserve some accolades for that, right? So Ethan meets up with Benjy, and we also get a meetup with Luther. Luther, not looking too good. Now, I remember seeing less and less of Luther in the previous films, to the point where he pretty much had very minimal role in this. Do you recall, did they ever explain why he's sick? He just kind of has like some illness that he's dying from. I don't really remember them saying anything about what it is or why it's happening. Do you recall anything about Luther's illness that's caused him to lose screen time more and more?
I mean, it's all news to me, really. I just figured when they said, hey, this is going to be the last movie, they're like, all right, well, let's just start killing people off,
Yeah, well, I guess so. So, because I remember,
let's kill off everybody except Tom Cruise. So,
yeah, you got to keep him around, right? Because what happens if it does really good? You might want to bring Tom Cruise back for something. So, but yeah, I also know that it seems like Ving Rhames maybe had some health concerns going on. So, there might have been other reasons outside of the story beat about stuff that's going on. But yeah, so he's suffering for some form of illness. But Luther, as he's kind of continued with this, is just like pretty much like the best tech person in the world, right? So he has developed this thing called the Poison Pill, which is supposed to help defeat the entity, right? This is the AI that's been kind of in the shadows for some time. A little bit longer than maybe you would think, as we'll talk about very briefly in a moment. But the group of Ethan, Benjy, and Luther need to find Gabriel first to figure out where the entity is or where they need to go. So they decide, hey, cool, how are we going to get to Gabriel? Well, let's go get that Paris chick, right? Remember Paris from the last one that got betrayed by Gabriel? And if I remember correctly, she just kind of gets captured at the end. Well, now they just kind of break her out immediately. So she's captured at the end. Now we're just going to break her out so she can help find Gabriel. And while they're breaking them out, the character Degas, who, like I said, I honestly don't remember ever hearing his name, but just know that he's going to be a part of this movie from here on out, right? So he's one of the works for the U.S. intelligence community. So he's going to be a part of this. So they pick up Paris, they pick up Degas, who's not part of the team, and they need to go out there and they need to find Gabriel. So as they are tracking him down, we see Ethan finds Grace, right? So Grace, played by Hayley Atwell. Wait a minute, not Hayley. Yeah, Hayley Atwell. We find out that she's there, and we get Ethan and Grace get captured by some of Gabriel's goons, as it were. So now this is where some of my minor nitpicks start to come in on things that kind of bother me. So this is where Gabriel's kind of talking, and he's expositing as any great villain does. And he talks about the fact that, oh, so remember the third movie, we had this thing called the Rabbit's Foot? Well, actually, that was the entity all along, right? So it tries really hard to pull from these past films, and I didn't really understand why it felt the need to be like, oh yeah, remember the Rabbit's Foot that you're trying to get in the third one? Well, that was actually the entity all along. And this is kind of one of my, like I said, minor gripes with this, but they constantly want to bring up the older films. And I felt like it didn't really add anything to it, right? So we have Briggs, right, who's also part of the U.S. intelligence community. So we find out that Briggs was actually Jim Phelps' son from the first one, right? Our main villain from the first one. So his son has been a part of this. Why we need that connection, I will not know. Briggs had such a minor role. Actually, I wouldn't even argue, I wouldn't even say minor role. Briggs had practically no role in this. So the fact that they made him connected in that way felt a little bit weird. And then we also see Dunlow again, who, for anyone that really liked the first one, right, this was the guy that created the knock list, right? The very infamous scene of dropping in from the ceiling and, you know, having to watch like you're sweating everything. So he comes back in this, and he actually has a decent role. But once again, I was like, why? Why do we need to see this? Why do I need to have the discussion about the rabbit's foot? Why do I have to see, you know, oh, you know, Jim Phelps' son is a part of this? Why do I have to see Dunlow returning? I just didn't get it. Why do you think the film decided, hey, we want to bring up all these pieces from past films?
Well, I mean, it is the swan song of the franchise. So if they figured, well, these ancillary characters that you didn't think too much about, they actually do play a much bigger role. This movie here, I just think the whole rabbit's foot was the entity all along. I thought that was just a stupid shoehorning bit that really didn't. I mean, it actually cheapens, Mission Impossible 3. It doesn't enhance the story at all. It just makes you think, wow, well, now that I know, I actually didn't like it now. Come to think of it. I mean, I'm even more surprised they didn't just say, you remember Cobalt, right? Well, Cobalt was the original name that they were going to give to the entity, but they used it as a code name for Hendrix to throw everybody off the scent, And it's like, okay, this doesn't enhance my experience, but hey. You guys are being paid the money to write this shit, so yeah, go ahead.
That's the problem. None of it enhanced anything. Like, it's like, oh, cool, that's like a unique thing, but it's just like, no, you're almost like retconning things, and there's no purpose or payoff for it. So it was bizarre, right? It was a very odd choice, or at least from.
I mean, it's not like the Marvel retcon where it turns out Peter Parker was that kid in Iron Man 2. At the expo. At least that kind of makes sense. Whereas here it's like, well, it doesn't really do anything because we're talking about like, nearly a decade after the fact. So it's like, well, there's really nothing that you can add to it because by that point the story's already been told, right?
Absolutely.
And I would even say I don't think anybody even thought about the rabbit's foot until you brought it up, and it's like,
no,
it's like really you remember that because we totally forgot about that shit too.
Yeah, no. Sometimes I feel like it's just worth it not to bring it up, right? Because now I feel like it's trying to be interconnected when it really didn't deserve to be there. But I digress. So, but yeah, so Gabriel, captures both Ethan and Grace, and he wants Ethan to go get the Podkova, right? So what that Podkova is, it is the source code for the entity that is on the sunken sub that's out in the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah, Sevastopol.
Yeah, the Sevastopol. Thank you. Yes. So that's what they're looking to do. So he wants to get it. And why does he want to get it? Well, he wants to control the entity and control the role, right? Just like any good villain is. He feels like he can control this AI, which I guess we'll talk about a little bit here in a bit, but that's what his grand plan is. So, luckily, with everything, right, you can't be a villain that exposes too much because it allows your heroes to get away. Both Ethan and Grace are able to escape, but as they're escaping, they're going after Gabriel. Gabriel is able to escape, and this is where the entity tries to communicate with Ethan, and I just seeing it again just made me laugh at it again because this is really goofy mask that he puts on, and I'm like, why is Ethan putting on the GIMP mask to talk to an AI intelligence? It is the most awkward looking thing ever. I don't know what they're thinking with that, but the entity, or I guess whatever this is, right? Because I don't even think it is the entity. I think it's like something that works with the entity. I don't know. But it pretty much is like sitting there talking about, hey, I want to destroy the world. And it shows them kind of like all these, I don't know, visions, right? Which, it kind of makes it seem like omnipotent with how much it knows and how much it can predict the future. And this kind of brings me to an issue that I had with the first one that I'm going to raise again in this one, which is I despise the entity as a villain. It is stupid, right? Now, I will say this, right? AI is obviously gaining a lot more traction now, right? I think we're seeing AI making leaps and bounds in the world. I know that there is more and more concern over the use of AI and how prevalent it is being in our day-to-day lives. So maybe the movie will be a little bit more prophetic than I think it is in the future, but it just seems so lazy to have the villain be AI. And my big thing with it is it doesn't really, it's not tangible enough to do anything against, right? And that's my problem with it. When you have a villain, right, you want to have a villain that your hero can have a direct quarrel with, right? When you're like, hey, cool, Ethan's going to fight a supercomputer, that just sounds stupid, right? This is not like Brainiac that has like, some type of physical form, right? It is literally just an AI. It's literally just like, hey, I'm going to fight the cloud today. And it just...
Or like Ultron, really.
Like that.
Sorry,
what was that?
Oh, no, I was going to say, or like Ultron.
Sure, yes, yeah, right.
Well, at least with Ultron, he started off as AI, and then he built himself a body, and then the Avengers were like, let's wail on this motherfucker.
Exactly, right, yeah, like, exactly, right? Like, at least then you have something physical and tangible for your hero to deal with. When it is just like it's like fighting the internet, it just doesn't come across as good. So
I just had this funny image of like Tom Cruise just punching a motherboard. It's like, take that, you son of a bitch. He's just like smashing it, and then he turns to the camera. It's like,
yeah, I mean that's what you have to do. Right? There's nothing to do with it. It's just like, okay, cool. What do I do? Turn it off? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't have anything, and it just I don't know. That continued to bother me, especially as like Gabriel kind of takes a back seat for a lot of this. I don't know. I just didn't like that.
Well, you're also forgetting the fact that the entities also cultivated some weird Jim Jones like.
Oh sure,
everybody's like
the acolytes.
Yeah, and they kind of pepper that throughout the film, especially when they're crucial moments where they're like, oh, the entity must live. Whether they're trying to like sabotage Ethan while he's on the treadmill or trying to kill the president.
Yeah, they had to throw it in so this way they can have random fight sequences when there's nothing going on. So this way you throw a little bit in there. So, but yeah, like I said. Not a fan of the entity as a villain. I think for your swan song, probably was maybe a different direction.
Well, I was gonna say too, because I mean, like, if with the entity being a villain, then it makes Ethan Hunt, redundant because there's nothing he can do. I mean,
yeah.
at that point, Benjy becomes the hero because
exactly right. I mean, Benjy like a Luther gonna be more useful in this fight,
right? Which would make sense that they want Luther out of the way because Luther obviously wouldn't know how to take him down. But even then, I'm surprised they wouldn't try to go after Benjy more because Benjy has the technical know-how. And at that point, Tom Cruise is like, "Well, hold on, then what the fuck am I doing?" Because then what? So that means I can't drive a motorcycle off a mountain into a server room. It's like, no, Tom, you can't do that. We need to let Benjy, defeat the entity using the power of source code. Well, I don't like that at all. So I guess they had to like go through all these twists and turns to, I guess, make it so that Tom Cruise, had some relevancy in this whole thing.
They came up with something to make sure that Ethan Hunt would be happy, right? So, Ethan is sitting there with the team, chatting with the entity or whatever's going on there, and then Gabriel goes out and he finds the sickly Luther, right? Who's just sitting there and he's got the poison pill around his neck, and I was just like, oh, come on, like, like put that at a desk or something. Like, you're honestly gonna sit there and put like the most critical thing for like the world's safety, and you're gonna have it around your neck like some type of prize. Like, come on, Luther. I expected better of you.
Well, see, I thought IMF would do a much better job with like hiding their assets. Like, how is it that,
Sure.
that some guy like Gabriel's going to be able to find them that easily? Like,
Just walks in.
it didn't take that long, by the way. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a cat and mouse game. Like, he just
Oh, yeah.
walked in,
He
found
just-
Luther,
yep.
and like strapped him to a bomb, and that
Yep.
was it.
Yeah. Well, he's like 5 minutes from wherever they are, so he just walks over, stabs the nurse or the doctor, whoever's there, because that's the only one that we ever see that's actually there that's trying to take care of him. So, you know, once again, kind of goofy, but hey, you know, it is what it is. I guess you need that story to keep Gabriel in with the plot, because if you just had Luther give it to Ethan and it was already completed, then Gabriel would be non-existent for the rest of the film. There'd be no point for him. So, but that's what it is. So, unfortunately, Gabriel sets up some really convoluted trap where now there's a bomb, and Luther has to defuse the bomb. And unfortunately for Luther, there's not a way to fully defuse the bomb. You can only defuse it somewhat, and then someone's going to have to sacrifice himself to save the city above, right? And, you know, there's this, I'm going to call it heart-to-heart moment between Ethan and Luther about everything's going to happen, with Ethan eventually just kind of agreeing that there's not anything he could do and he has to go. So Luther gets sacrificed, and Luther, been with us for the whole time, right, is killed. I didn't care. What do you think? Am I wrong? Did you care? Did Luther give a tear to your eye?
I mean, I kind of like Luther. I thought he was a pretty solid guy. I just thought the way he went out was kind of it was a cop out, really. It's like, well,
yeah,
this is the best that you could do. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, I think, like I said, don't get me wrong, I always really liked Luther. I thought he was a super cool character, and I think a part of it for me is I feel like he's been involved less and less, and because he was so uninvolved in some of the previous titles, it just made me not really care as much for his demise. And I think whatever's kind of going on with either the health of the character, health of Ving Rhames, or a mixture of the both, I think that played a factor into what I did, because when I watched it, I was just like, oh, that kind of sucks, right? You know, I didn't want to see Luther die, but I also don't feel like it's a huge emotional payoff for what it is. Luther just kind of is like the Deus Ex Machina. Like, he creates all this stuff. He creates some type of 5D optical drive that doesn't exist as well behind the scenes on the houses. So it's like kind of Luther is just like kind of there to, you know, propel the plot with all of his amazing stuff. And they're like, okay, we're going to have to kill you because you're doing too much shit now. So, but yeah, so Luther died. You know, let's pour one out for Ving Rhames, you know, a guy that's been here since the beginning. And Ethan ends up escaping the bomb blast, but he turns himself into the U.S. intelligence group, right? And they're going to take him to see the president of the United States.
I mean, that part kind of confused me, because he sends Benjy and everybody else to go find, you know, the Sevastopol, but then he allows himself to get captured. And I'm like, well, what exactly does that accomplish, really?
Yeah. Once again, I guess this is where, like, Ethan just has the best planning skills of all time, right? Where he knows, hey, I'm going to go see the president. I'm able to convince her of all this stuff that's going on. So I agree with you. When I first watched it, I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And after I watched it, I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of a really stupid way of having him get through everything, is by getting captured, because I guess that was the only way that he saw it working out, right? Because you know, have him on the flight where he's going back to the U.S. or wherever they're going. I forget, some complex or whatever. And this is where we see Briggs, and this is where he discloses, or I guess Ethan knows, that this is Jim Phelps' son from the first one, right? So they have this kind of like, I don't know, this back and forth about, I guess, the son feels like Jim Phelps was actually a good guy and not a traitor, and Ethan's been lying all this time about it. I don't know. I was just like, okay, cool.
It was really bad dialogue. I gotta say,
it
like
was.
it
It was
didn't have
just,
to happen.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, this movie's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Is this needed? Am I gonna get some type of crazy thing out of this? Like, no. I was like, okay, cool. I guess this is a thing now. But this is where he kind of disclosed that information. So, hey, once again, connection with the first movie. And we have Kittredge, who is telling Hunt, or we kind of see here, that the entity is slowly taking over all the nuclear arsenals that are within the world, right? And I think there's 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So, I think we see at the time there's like half of them are gone, and they're slowly losing access to everything. You literally have like a doomsday clock going on in the background, with like, hey, once it's hit 0, everything's gonna be turned over. So kind of goofy, but it is what it is. You have to have this ticking time clock narrative for it. So Ethan has this meeting here with a bunch of people, including the president, where Ethan pretty much convinces the president that, hey, you know what? I know you want to control the entity, or I know you have a different plan, but my plan, that's going to be the real plan, right? So Ethan is able to convince the president that he has the right mindset, or he has the right plan in place to deal with this. So she kind of just lets him go on his path to go do shit. Now, Luca, I'm going to ask you a really easy question, right? So you're the president of the United States, okay? Do you think you're going to give over the power that you have, where there's the whole world's at stake, and you're going to give it over to one guy? Is that something you would do?
I mean, if the guy's not me, then no.
Right? It's just, and I mean, I get it, right? I know we're trying to once again show how badass Ethan is, but it's like, wow, we're really relying on this guy to do.
I mean,
he's
relying on hope is all it is, really. And what I find interesting is the fact that he keeps appealing to her. It's like, you used to work in this intelligence work yourself. You should know all the stakes. I'm like, really, dude? Like, that's the angle you're going with. I mean, also too, like, he's going all these details about, oh, I need a submarine, but it's a submarine that nobody knows exists, but it's supposedly out there. And we gotta find, where the submarine is, so we can grab the Putkova and do this and that, and it has to be timed exactly like this. And I'm just thinking in my mind, I'm like, he's really confident that this is going to go through.
Oh yeah,
because when he lands in the submarine captain is like, who the fuck are you, dude? I'm like, yes, that is the correct attitude.
I'm pretty sure that's the reaction from everybody, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
He sees like the what was it, the George W. Bush ship, right? And he's like, hey, I need to be on that one. And I don't know if he knows from the president's past that there's someone on the ship that's gonna be integral to the story on there.
Apparently there was. So
yes, like it's just impressive. Like the man just knows how to do it all. And I was just like, wait a minute, how can he play this all out, right? Like this is a little bit too much. He might actually be smarter than the AI, right? I just don't know what to say. So,
well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, because the thing that really irritated me was the fact that throughout the movie, he's like, "Oh, the entity expects you to do this, but don't do it. We need to do the exact opposite instead. So you need to forgive me instead." I'm like, are you a fucking hippie or something? Like, what the hell's going on here? Like he's just acting like he's acting all kumbaya and messianic and everything. And what really irritated me was the fact that he's trying to appeal to people's emotions when he's doing this. I'm like, dude, people are at their wits' end right now. I mean, the world is this close to nuclear Armageddon, and you're basically advocating for a kumbaya attitude. That's not going to fly with a lot of people,
No, it's not. And the other thing that was obviously very kind of, I always say off-putting to me, is that you're so convinced that attitude's going to prevail, but you don't really have anything that backs up that mindset, right? Like, for all you know, the entity's like, hey, cool, I think he's going to appease everybody, and by doing that, it's not going to work. So you don't really know. Like, that's the problem when you're dealing with AI as your villain and you're dealing with all this stuff. Like, you can't possibly know with any sense of true conviction that what you're doing is not playing exactly to the hands of what you're trying to.
It's based on hope, really.
Yes.
Which is not a really good, mindset to have when you're doing stuff like this.
Mission Impossible: The New Hope.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So, but yep. So that's the way it is. So this is where, okay. So we got. I'm gonna call this our Mission Impossible Scenario 1, right? Because really, there's 2 huge action set pieces for this, and this is one of 2, right? So I'm gonna kind of break down very quickly what happens, because really this is just an extremely long action set piece. I think it goes for almost 40 minutes, so it's like a good chunk of the film. So we have kind of a split up of our teams, right? So we got Benjy and the rest of the team, everyone except for Ethan, and they need to go to this sound surveillance base that's out in whatever, some island, St. Matthew's Island. Was that the island name, right?
Yeah, St. Matthew's Island. It was like in the Bering Sea or something.
Yeah, right. It's in a cold place, right? So the team is going there because they need to find the exact coordinates for the Sevastopol, right? The submarine that sunk that has the source code for the entity on it. So they have to go there to do that. And lo and behold, when they get to the base and they meet who's there, it's none other than William Dublow, who was in the first film, right? He was the guy that created the knock list that Ethan had to steal from the vault. And I was just like, when I saw him appear on screen, I was like, that guy kind of looks familiar. And then when he brings it up, I'm like, oh, okay, so he's up here. And I'm like, why? Well, what was this character? Like, he had so, like, little relevance to the original one. Like, he's just kind of the guy that created the list. He didn't really have a whole lot of super big story significance. I'm like, why did he, out of all these people, get, like, I guess, resurrected or brought back for the story? Super weird, right? Once again, goes to, I don't get why they felt the need to try to interconnect everything. Like, this is some, like, big old, like, grand scheme of thing that's been happening since the first one. Really weird, but, whatever. So we got Dunlow's back here. The team goes in, but unfortunately there's a bunch of Russian soldiers that are lying in wait as well, because they too want to figure out where this sub is. All right, so our team is able to defeat these Russians, right? And it's just like, I don't know. I had a kind of a laugh at it because, like, the Russians, like, the good guys and the bad guys had this fight in the house, right? And, like, they beat up the Russians, but I don't know if they killed, they might have killed maybe 1 or 2, but most of them, they just kind of escape and they leave and they're never mentioned again. I was just like,
but that's the thing about the Mission Impossible movies is, like, most of the time the villain gets away. How many times does Gabriel keep getting away? Like,
that's true.
Right,
that's true.
He's right there. Like, you can't just shoot the guy and end it. And another thing too, like, as I was watching this movie, I was just thinking there are so many situations where Ethan puts himself in, and you kind of have to wonder. All you have to do is just drop a chandelier or something, like, at the right angle, and that's it. That's the end of Ethan Hunt. Like, you kind of have to wonder, like, what the hell's going on here? Like, is this like the Stormtrooper thing where everybody is such a bad shot they can't hit the target? Like, what is this?
It was just weird, right? And it's just like a bunch of random henchmen that have no story significance. These are like the perfect red shirts to kill, but, like, the majority of them, they just kind of, like, jump out windows and they run away and they never get referenced. They're just like, okay, I guess you win. We're not going to deal with that. We're just going to, like, run away from this incident.
I'll tell you what's even weirder is that when that station gets set on fire and we see Dunlow there, I'm like, okay, so that's the end of Dunlow. Like, that's him. Like, that's his, 5 minutes of screen time right there. Nice knowing you, buddy.
Yeah.
'Cause there's no way anybody could survive. I'm surprised Benjy didn't die in that thing too. Because I mean,
Yeah,
they already got rid
needed
of
Benji,
Luther.
right? They need him a little bit longer. But yes, it was weird that Dunlow, like the whole house catches fire. He's sitting there like doing the Morse code to communicate with Ethan to tell him the coordinates. Yeah, and lo and behold, like as this whole place is burning up, I thought that he was just gonna die or he's gonna burn alive in there to make sure that they got the message. But no, he's okay. He just kind of leaves, right? We get him out of there.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. There was a back door that wasn't on fire, so he's like, "I'll just go
yeah,
out here."
yeah.
then.
He just kind of leapt out the window somewhere. I have no idea, but he's fine, right? He's fine. It was really important for him to be in the rest of the film. So that group escapes, and Grace, she travels with Dunlow's wife, who I will not even try to pronounce the name. I didn't even write it down, but I'm just gonna refer to as Dunlow's wife. So they take a group of sled dogs to this location where, to where the sub's location is, because they're expecting to get Ethan when he returns from his part of the mission, right? So that is side number one with Benjy and the rest of the people, right? So they had, a little skirmish with some Russians, but they're all okay for the most part. Ethan has one of the most convoluted ways of getting to the sub that I saw, and I was just like, God damn, could they not like cut out any of this? Was this all required?
Well, no,
for the
because
story?
no, because they want to get a lot of shots of Tom Cruise without a shirt, so Tom Cruise can prove I may be in my 60s, but I'm still good looking. I'm still Top Gun good looking. Although I will agree with you that it was convoluted and they could have cut out a lot of scenes.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm not sure why they even had to go through the whole mess of him going back and forth with the submarine commander, because I felt like they got played out real quickly.
Yeah.
I thought the submarine captain would at least be in the know, but he's like, "Hey, I'm just I'm in the dark as much as anybody else here. I don't know what the fuck's going on."
Yeah, it was so many pieces that I was like, oh my gosh, we could have cut out like 20 minutes of the film and just would have been like, just drop him on top of where the Sevastopol was. Like that's all that needed to happen. But they decided no. Instead, what we're gonna do is Ethan's gonna board this U.S. aircraft carrier, right, which happens to be led by someone that the president knew, and she just like kind of gives her this, or the president gives Ethan this like little letter with the date on it, and this is a date that obviously the aircraft carrier captain knows. So she's like, oh, this is a really important date, and people didn't act when they should have, and someone died that was important. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So she's like, okay, cool. Well, I'll give you time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put you on.
But that in itself is convoluted, because wouldn't it make more sense to just have a presidential order that said, "Hey, help this dude here"? Like, why the fuck would you have a date?
Yeah. There was like 1,000 things that they could have done differently that would have made more sense than what we got, right? Because I still don't like the fact that. Yeah. So he gets to this aircraft carrier, and then it's like, okay, cool. The aircraft carrier, we need to take you. We're gonna get you on a ship, or I'm sorry, we're gonna get you on a plane, and we're gonna fly you to where the sub is, not the sub, the Sevastopol, but I don't even remember the name of the American sub. But we need to get you to that sub.
It's the Ohio. No,
Ohio.
What's funny is that when I was watching it, it sounded like they were saying, "Well, we think it may be here, but we can't really say because it's a top secret mission." So if we take you to that spot, we think it may be there, but who knows?
Yeah, it's true, right? So he gets flown out here, right? And keep in mind, right, we're literally out in like the Arctic area, right? Like this is right near this is right up in the Arctic Sea, right? It is not super great conditions.
Also, keep in mind too, the Russians are also like swarming the area, and
they're everywhere, right? And
they make it a point. They make it a point to say, well, we can't be here too long because if they see us, they'll start shooting, and it won't be good for anybody.
Yes, exactly, right? Because we do see the Russian jets kind of go by, and they flash off the missiles at our heroes, and they're like, okay, well, you got a minute, so I guess you just need to fuck off or do something because we can't be here. So then Ethan just jumps out of the ship, and I guess luckily the team on the Ohio was just like, I don't know, out and about. I don't know if they like saw, I don't know if they like heard that there's a like helicopter, whatever that is, that was on top of them, or whatever that plane was. I don't know if they do that, but they're out there, and they zap Ethan and they bring him down to the sub. I don't know how all that went, but hey, cool. Now he's on the sub. And on the sub, they're like, okay, cool. Now that we're on the sub, we need to go down, or we need to go to where the Sevastopol is. And Ethan, from the sub, he's going to get into some suit that's going to help take him down to the Sevastopol, right? Now, we do get this little action sequence, right? Because there's an AI alkalite on there that wants to protect them. Ethan makes a joke like, oh, you need to be less on the internet. So I was like, okay, good one, Ethan. And then we went back to our regularly scheduled ass kicking. So he ends up being dropped on top of the submarine so he could complete his task, right, for the Sevastopol.
And the shot. By the way, the shots of him swimming around, it's like, I mean, it's just too long. Like, just show him getting into the sub. That's it. I'll tell you what. Lee. It kind of reminded me of those old school watch commercials you used to see back in the 90s, where like people are swimming around and they're like, Omega, the watch that can survive anything, and it's a go where and do anything kind of watch. And I was just hearing it in my head, and I was just thinking, like, God, like I could cut this and turn this into like a fake watch commercial just from all these swimming scenes right here.
It was so unneeded. It was like, oh, cool. Am I watching The Abyss now? Like, at least that had a purpose for being in the water all the time, and it made sense for it to do what it did. This is like, okay, this is totally not needed. So cool. Now Ethan is on the Sevastopol, right? So he needs to get the Podvica, right, which is has the source code for the entity. And of course, in true Mission Impossible fashion, the submarine is just dangling over a cliff, because why not, right? We have to have a cliff there. So as soon as he gets on the ship, the sub, it starts to turn over. So it's kind of slowly rolling off a cliff because we needed to raise the stakes a little bit more.
I'm sorry. So the Sevastopol was just sitting there minding its own business, and then Ethan just swims in, adds just a little bit of weight, and all of a sudden just starts to roll off.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Okay, whatever.
Now, granted, I will say this, right? There is some water that gets on with him, right? So I could see a little bit that, hey, all this water being introduced might cause some problems. But damn, like, it is just something where it's like, that thing just starts tumbling around. I'm like, oh my gosh, do we really need to have this? Like, this ship has been down there for a long time. Is this all it takes for it to happen? I guess so. So Ethan, he's, as the ship is rolling around, he's able to use the little key thing. He gets the I don't know, the hard drive out that has the source code for the entity, and he is trying to escape the sub as it's going down. But lo and behold, like, what was it? Like a missile kind of like blocks the door, blocks the exit. So I'm like, oh, of course. So then he has to get into a missile tube in order to escape. But with his suit on, it's too big. So he has to, like, he literally just gets down into his underwear, right? Keep in mind, right? Once again, gonna reiterate, this is like up there, like in Alaska and Russia, right? In the DayZ, like, it's probably pretty cold up there. And he just gets down to the skibbies, and he's like, okay, I guess I'm just going to float to the surface.
And by the way, he's more than 600 feet underwater.
So. Oh, yes, right. And he gets dragged down further, too, right? Because, like, of course, in all this going on, he gets his pack gets snagged by the submarine as it's falling down. So, yeah, so he's kind of in a bad spot right now. And, yes, he's able to swim to the surface in freezing cold weather, in nothing other than, his underwear, right? And I know, like, people do, like, the polar plunge and stuff like that. So I know, like, people will get into freezing cold temperatures. But
but they're not swimming like
of
more
course,
than
yes,
6 feet underwater.
yes, I know. Yes, you're right. They're not swimming around, right? They're not really doing all that work. They're just simply like in there while Ethan is sitting there swimming to the surface as he's obviously getting the bends and everything too. Well,
but don't forget, I mean, Benjy did have that little inflatable chamber with him, so
correct, yes, correct, right, and we'll get to that in 1 second because you're absolutely right. So now technically Ethan dies, right? So I mean, with how ridiculous everything is, he does kind of croak here, right? But luckily he's saved by Grace and her cleavage that shows up. I don't know about you, but it was super distracting because like it's just like they almost were, like really focusing on her chest as she was giving him CPR. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I guess thanks for the fan service. Like it was like not needed, but hey, I guess that's what's going to be needed for this. So Grace is like helping give him CPR. And then, yes, as you pointed out, right, they have a makeshift decompression chamber that they're able to utilize to get Ethan healthy again. Now, I'm not a diver, right? I'm not super familiar with how all that stuff works. But I did find it like totally bizarre, like how they got everything organized. And also, I feel like if you have the bends, and I don't know what the exact like numbers are for it, but considering how far down he was, I felt like his recovery time would have been pretty massive for this decompression chamber. It almost feels like it like works over the course of an hour, and I feel like they try to use some type of mumbo jumbo about like, hey, there's this special air concoction we're gonna give you that's gonna make your recovery faster, but it just kind of feels like an afterthought that he gets the bends and they have to be in this decompression chamber in order for him to survive. So that's the first of our big sequences, right? So how did you like the whole submarine angle, right? I know we've been talking about it quite a bit, but it felt like its own movie by itself, and at the end of it I was like, oh my gosh, like is there going to be more crazy shit that happens? Because I feel like that was maybe the climax of another film. But in this one, it just felt like, oh yeah, that's just like a part of it. We're saving the rest of the stuff for the last act. I'm like, holy shit, like that took fucking forever to get done.
I mean that was close to an hour when you add all those sequences together.
Oh my goodness gracious, it was long, and I will say this as well, right? And I don't want to dwell on it. I mean, I guess I want to dwell on it a little bit. But we have this strong ticking clock narrative, right? Like we have, hey, we got to be able to get this done in 4 days. And as that's happening, and it's like, okay, well now he has to, be in this chamber for X amount of time. And I'm like, why did you like make him get the bends? Like, could you not think of a better way? Like, I don't know. I know it's like nitpicky, but it's like if you have like such a strong time constraint on something that's going to happen, and you like bring up the bends and how it's going to impact someone, it's like a normal person I'm sure would have been in that chamber like the whole 4 hours, and the whole 4 days, and then everyone would have just died because in reality that's going to be the recovery time. But for him, it's like, hey, sure, he's fine in like 2 hours. He just took a power nap. And he's okay from all the negative effects of the bends. And it's just like, why introduce that to the story? Like, it just felt like, it's like, hey, cool, we have to explain it, but then the way you explain it makes it seem stupid, and it would have been better just to take the story in a different direction if you have to go down that path. So, I don't know. I had a problem with that. I don't know. I don't like, he should have got the bends. Do something different, have him have the suit the whole time, so we don't have to sit there and worry about him. But I guess that was a way to, get Grace into, her tank top. And I guess that was okay.
Hey, I mean, if Marvel's not going to show it, then they might as well do it,
I guess so, because like I said, super, super critical for the story to have that. So once Ethan takes his nap and, sleeps off the bends after being down in the freezing cold water where he died. The team decides like, hey, cool, now we need to figure out where to go from here, and we need to go to this doomsday vault that's located in South Africa. And this is where the entity wants to go in order to survive the upcoming nuclear apocalypse that's going to be happening, right?
Wait, so why does an AI need a safe house to survive the apocalypse?
Look, man, that's a great point, right? I mean, I guess if you're going to destroy everything, that you might as well have it. Now, I don't know, like, for me, like, I don't know how long you're going to survive in this, like, little bunker, because I feel like without, like, humanity, you're not going to be able to upkeep yourself, but I don't know. But for story's sake, the entity wants to go to this doomsday vault because it's going to protect it from all the nuclear fallout and the EMPs and whatever nonsense, and that's what they want to do. So
all right.
Now Gabriel, right, who's been gone for this whole movie at this stage, right? He's been gone for over an hour. He's just been, I guess, lying in wait there for the team to show up, which Ethan does. Now, it's actually important for Gabriel to get the Pakova because he has the pill still from Luther. So actually, he's kind of, unbeknownst to him, he's actually a part of this plan by Ethan to give him everything to kind of upload this virus for the entity. So we actually are kind of like wanting Gabriel to follow through on his plan, or that's the whole purpose. But then everything kind of goes off its rails because as Ethan is there with Gabriel and some other, I don't know, Gabriel is henchman still. I don't know. They showed like a bunch, but I guess there's a bunch of people there still. I don't know. But we have Kittredge and Briggs show up with a bunch of their henchmen. And now we're going to have this, big old gunfight with everything going on. Right. So this starts our second crazy Mission Impossible set piece. And I'm just going to kind of break down, I guess, the important parts of this so we can just kind of fast forward to the end. Because really, it's just a whole bunch of chaotic things going off. So first, right, Ethan is chasing after Gabriel, right? Gabriel actually leaves the bunker. It gets into some, some old-timey looking plane and is flying away. But Ethan is able to climb on top of another plane that's taking off in order to chase him. So we have Ethan and Gabriel, I guess, having this like really weird, I don't know. I don't even know what they're trying to do because it's like they don't have guns on their airplane. So they're just like flying close to each other. I don't know if they're trying to crash. I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me what they're exactly trying to get accomplished because they don't have any weapons on there, so they're just.
I just think it's kind of weird. Like some other guy, like at that moment, decides to fly his biplane at the same time. It's like, and what's weird too is the fact that Ethan, Ethan basically grabs the guy, punches him, throws him out of the plane. I'm like, for all we know, he could have just been sightseeing, dude. Like, what are you doing? You just killed an innocent man for nothing.
And remember, that was the only other person, right? So of everyone that's there. That was the only other person that was flying away with Gabriel, right? So I don't know if that was like a really important number 2 that we missed in this whole thing, but it was the only other person that was flying. So we got that going on. Now, there's a bomb because why not, right? We need to have a bomb. So there's some bomb in the bunker that was set off. So we have Dunlow, his wife, and Degas. So their job is to disarm this bomb. Because I guess they didn't have anything to do, so they needed to disarm something. Then we got Grace, Paris, and Benjy, and they're going to this, secure room to deal with the entity. And while all that shit's going on, you kind of have this in the backdrop. The U.S. is now the only country that has nuke capabilities left, and they're deciding about whether or not they should take the initiative to shoot up and destroy, all these other big nuclear sites in order to protect them from the entity taking over, right? So that's all this shit going on, right? So there's about 1,000 damn things going on during the final sequence of this film. Right, and so as we break it down, right? So Ethan and Gabriel having this fight. I like how this. I don't know if like they were like, hey, cool, hanging off the plane in the previous one got a lot of people talking about it. So let's just have him fucking dangling from this biplane the whole time, right? Like it's just like totally wild how he's just like hanging off to the wing as he's like fighting Gabriel. He does do that like he breaks Gabriel's arm pretty good. He just kind of like yanks that thing back, and that thing's like all like flopping in the wind. And he's able to, I'm gonna say, kill Gabriel, right? Gabriel kind of just like.
Gabriel ends up offing himself, basically.
Yeah, he just like kind of dies by accident, right? Like he just kind of like is like, hey, cool, I got a parachute, I'm gonna let go, and he just kind of like just gets killed by the tail of the plane that I guess he didn't expect or see. It was so weird. I was like, how is that the death for this character? Like you try to make him out to be like this, like almost like equal to Ethan, and he just gets murdered by the tail of the plane. And I'm like,
because in the last movie they're kind of building it up to where there's going to be this showdown where Ethan finally gets his revenge after everything Gabriel's done to him, and then Gabriel dies in the most bitch way possible.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that was anticlimactic right there. I mean,
it's not even he did. Yeah, it's like I don't even know if he got your revenge, right? Because really, you didn't do anything. He just kind of committed suicide, right? Like it's kind of I don't know how else to describe it. Like it was not. It was. He got killed by the plane, right? That was actually the person that did it. So, but yeah,
so the plane gets credit. Yeah.
Yes. So sure, we'll give him. He'll get like half a kill for that one, right? He got an assist. But Ethan was able to grab the pill from around his neck before he decided to get killed by the plane. As he's parachuting down, I like how the parachute caught fire, and I'm like, how did the parachute catch fire? What is going? Like, I was just like, I had to go back. I'm like, did something like fall on the parachute to make it catch fire and just like spontaneously combusted? It's like, no, we need a little bit more action. So we're gonna have Ethan pull his spare chute, because I don't know, if I feel like if you've seen any movie with parachutes in it, that a parachute has a spare chute in it. So it's like it didn't really change the tension at all, because it's like, well, he's just gonna pull the spare and survive. So I'm like, okay, cool. But they really leave you on a cliffhanger as that's happening. So Ethan's able to put the pill into the Pakova. So he did his part of the job. We have the bomb defusal team, right? That's got Dunlow, his wife, and Degas on it. So they're able to find out, like, oh, actually, this bomb was put together very crappily, and because of it, like, we could actually delay the timing of the bomb. So it's like, okay, cool. So we'll just do that, and we'll survive. So those three survive the whole thing. So there was really no urgency for them. They're just like, hey, cool, we'll just give you a pass. There's a lot of other things going on. So you just defuse the bomb and you delayed enough to escape. You have Grace, Paris, and Benjy that are dealing with the entity. So they use this optical drive, right, that Luther created in order to capture the entity, and they make a huge deal over, like, hey, you have like 100 millionths of a second or 100 milliseconds in order to capture the entity, because if you keep it in there for too long, it will launch the nukes, and if you don't do it quick enough, it doesn't get captured. So, like, luckily, because Grace is a pickpocket, right? I like how her skills as a pickpocket are coming up in a very critical situation. I don't know if that's a good message for people. Like, hey, if you do illegal shit, that's good for the benefit of humanity. Don't know, but they're able to, I guess, capture the entity of the device, and the world's saved, right? That's it. So they got it. They do kind of this, not really like a meetup, but like all the characters kind of like, they kind of like do nods at each other, like, hey, cool, it's good to see Benjy again. Paris is here. DeGaule's here for whatever reason. Grace is here. They kind of do that whole like cool, yeah, we're all okay, blah 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 thing. And that's it. He gets the entity, and that's how the movie ends. And it was like, where do I even start? Like, it's.
I mean, the entity is not destroyed; he's just contained.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So we just got the entity there. And I guess, he's just going to keep it as a keepsake because he's the only person we can trust with anything is Ethan Hunt, right? So, I mean, that's the conclusion of the film. And, as someone that, as I said at the beginning, right, I thoroughly enjoyed the first one, right? I think it's probably still my favorite and everything. I will say, though, that there's obviously a long time between like the third film and then when they kind of like came back for the fourth and subsequent films. And I think that they definitely were good, right? It kind of felt like the first one was really good. The second one was like, I wasn't a huge fan of the Rabbit's Foot, the third one either, but the other ones like Ghost Protocol and everything like that, those were all pretty good, right? So I've enjoyed the Mission Impossible series for the most part with all the films. But I don't know. I felt like after I watched this, I was just tired of it, right? It's just like there's only so many times that I feel like I could suspend my disbelief before I'm like, God, like there's even points in the film where the characters were talking about how ridiculous everything sounded. It's like everything has to work out perfectly to the second. And I get that, right? We're watching Mission Impossible. It's not mission too hard or it's not mission super challenging, right? It's Mission Impossible. It's supposed to be really hard tasks. But it just felt like they didn't have anything to do. And it's just like, hey, cool, we just have to have, like, everything has to be going on at the same time to have this. Hell, I would argue they just, like, threw a random bomb into the last sequence just to give other people something else to do. You might as well just give them a bomb to defuse. Because when in doubt, add a bomb to the sequence, right? I think that for the most part, like, I mean, the sequences were cool, right? Like, the submarine sequence, super cool when they're on the Sevastopol. And, once again, gonna give Tom Cruise a ton of props for be able to, like, go through those sequences. But, everything else just felt like for this to be the final hurrah, there was just so much that I was just like, this doesn't really feel like the ending I would want. I thought Gabriel as a character was just, like, borderline useless in this. I know he had like a falling out with the entity, right? After he failed at the end of part one. So like there was, kind of all that stuff going on, but I'm like, I never really got behind either of the villains. I've obviously talked about the entity, how much I just dislike AI as a villain. But then Gabriel just kind of, like you said, went out like a bitch at the end. So I'm like, well, that's not very satisfying. So it just felt like they kept bringing more and more things up. And I'm like, just no, I don't need all this. I don't need to have all these characters popping up like, oh, remember Dumbo for the first one? Remember this? Remember the Rabbit's Foot? Like, I didn't need that to enjoy the story. I just wish they would have focused on, like, creating a fun narrative to see Ethan Hunt go out on. And I felt like this wasn't it, right? I think you should have done something that was a lot more human, right? You needed to have that strong human villain, someone that you can play off of that was indeed Ethan's equal in both, like, wit and brawn, right? But you didn't really do that. You kind of did with Gabriel, but then you also have this AI that's pulling all the strings that it's just like omnipotent, right? You can't just introduce like it's like a Deus Ex Machina that's just be like, hey, I can predict everything. And it's like, okay, this makes everything useless. Like, there's no attention when it's like, how do you actually go against the internet, right? How do you go against AI? It just doesn't sync well. So, I think if I was to give this a final grade, right, because I want to give it something here, I still think it's like a 3, right? Maybe like maybe I'll give it like a 3.5, right? It's still fun. It's enjoyable. If you like the action set pieces, they're very good. But gosh, I felt like it just didn't really have what I enjoyed from the first one. And it felt like as we went on, all it wanted to do was create more and more ridiculous situations. Before, after a while, it's just like, well, geez, I mean, Ethan's practically like God himself, right? Like, he can't he is faultless. He can't screw up. He can't do anything wrong. He's just going to win no matter what. And I just didn't like that. So I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. I know I've been kind of down on it a lot, but it still was an overall good film. I just felt like there was a lot of things that detracted from it in a final installment in something that has, was this the 8th movie, right? 8th, 9th movie, 7th movie, something like that. A whole lot of movies, and I just feel like it didn't really hit the head where I would like it. So, Luca, what'd you think?
After watching this, I decided to give it a 2 out of 5. I mean,
oh man,
I mean, they're just taking all these bits and pieces and recycling them. Like, are you telling me like you couldn't muster up the energy to kind of come up with a different story altogether? And furthermore, can they at least try to be consistent? Because it felt like, because the expectation was with Final Reckoning, it was supposed to like continue the story that we saw in Dead Reckoning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get that sense at all. I just felt like, oh, everything you saw in Dead Reckoning, kind of ignore that except for Nancy, and we're just going to go in a completely different direction, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for one, I was expecting Vanessa Kirby to come back because they made it sound like she was going to play a critical role, but I guess that didn't pan out too much. And a part of me kind of felt like, listen, as much as I dislike the idea of dipping, into the toy box and trying to bring everybody from the previous movies back, I felt like if you're going to do that, then at least commit to it. Don't half-ass it. I mean, bring back Jeremy Renner, bring back Paula Patton, bring back everybody from the previous movie so they can all have like, a little role and stuff, cameos. But no, it's like, no, maybe we'll do like these callbacks, but maybe we won't. Maybe we'll like try to like shoehorn in the rabbit's foot because everybody still remembers that even after all this time. But then we'll totally forget about that because the characters totally forgot about it on their end. And I felt like Gabriel could have been like the perfect villain because they set him up as the guy that Ethan Hunt wanted to get revenge on, right? Yeah. But then they do a bait and switch where it's like, oh, it turns out it's not Gabriel that you should be worrying about, it's the entity. I'm like, well, then why did you have us get all crazy about Gabriel? Gabriel doesn't factor too much in this movie here, because he appears at the beginning of the movie and then he appears at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much it. And it's like, well, what was he doing like this entire time then? Like, apart from killing Luther with that bomb, I mean, he really wasn't doing anything else that was meaningful, really. And even when he does go out, like the way that he dies, I feel like it really doesn't give Ethan the closure that he needed, because again, like he kills Ilsa and then he does all these things. He's playing head games, and now it's like, well, like he just dies by hitting his head against the rudder and just falls to his death. That's it. Like, Ethan doesn't get any satisfaction just from that. He doesn't even do a quip. Well, it's like, oh, well, he got the tail end of all of that. Like, he just goes in and tries to, plug the poison pill into the pot cova, and that's it. But yeah, I mean, I felt like I felt like this was one of those movies where it's like, well, they hyped it up, they built it up, they wanted us to expect a lot of great things, and then they delivered a subpar product.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, I will absolutely agree with that. So, while maybe I didn't feel as down on it as you did, I do agree with you that a lot of my discussion was around, to me, just the holes, and it's a shame because this is something that has been around for many, many years, right? This is almost a 30-year IP at this stage. And I mean, they've done some really awesome things, and there's been some incredible stunts. The stunt work has always been on top, but gosh, it just felt like, you made everything so convoluted. It just detracted from the story, and it didn't have to be convoluted. And that's the shameful part, was you had to throw everything in the kitchen sink in there. And to me, it just diluted your product.
And I tell you what's even more worrying is the fact that the entity is still out there. So who's to say someone doesn't come back in 3 to 5 years and say, well, we never really resolved that issue with the entity. It's still out there. And I mean, and who knows? I mean, maybe, maybe what happens is, Ethan Hunt kind of passes the torch onto a younger generation, and we reboot the entire Mission Impossible franchise with a younger actor. And it kind of starts off with Ethan Hunt losing the entity and another villain decides, you know what, I think I can control the entity. Let's go ahead and take it from Ethan Hunt so we can try to, have another go at it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can really see that, right? It's just like, oh, old Ethan Hunt, he's got to get back into again, but he's not young anymore. He's got to figure out how he's going to get the entity back. So he's got to train a new MIF operative, and he's going to be the new guy. So I can definitely see that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But hey, hopefully that's like maybe the next 10 years. And we'll have some time to kind of cool off on everything.
I mean, it won't be 10 years. I mean, Tom Cruise's ego will get to that point where he's like, you know what, I haven't taken my shirt off in the movie in a long time. I think let's do another Mission Impossible movie so I can do that. God, like it's just a shame because it did have some potential, right? I think had they excised a few scenes, had they changed the direction and here and there, maybe it would have been a bit more decent. But I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, what could have been, we'll never know. But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, let us know down in the comments below what your thoughts are. And now the robot is going to take us back to 2011 by reviewing Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Robot, Merry Christmas, and take it away, buddy.
Wow, what a review. And while the guys wrapped up the last movie in the Mission Impossible franchise with the final reckoning, I'm only on movie number 4 with Ghost Protocol from 2011. It's one of those movies I never got around to seeing back then, and I figured it wasn't a big of a deal. So when they proposed this as an option for our Christmas special, I jumped at the opportunity. Let's take a walk down memory lane and see where Ethan Hunt and friends were in 2011 when they were trying to prevent a nuclear holocaust. I assure you, you're not hearing things. That is what they were doing in the 4th movie of this franchise, all those years ago. So, Merry Christmas, one and all, and let's continue with our special and day 2 of the Christmas film series by diving into Ghost Protocol. So, the big baddie of Ghost Protocol is a former nuclear strategist named Kurt Hendricks, who goes by the codename Cobalt. His entire mission is to preempt a war between the United States and Russia, which will, ideally, lead to ultimate global annihilation, so something will happen. He's not quite clear on the details, really, other than seeing beauty in utter destruction. It would seem the creators of the entity in Dead Reckoning must have based the programming on Cobalt, because they think so much alike. In a weird sort of way, you could say the entity is like an incarnation of Cobalt, an avatar of the nuclear madness that lived on even after our friend made friends with the concrete in a Mumbai garage. I'm not entirely sure if Cobalt sees an opportunity to make himself lord of the world after the dust settles, or, to quote Alfred Pennyworth, just wants to watch the world burn. But he's not a very reasonable person. He's gung-ho and committed in his task to seeing what happened. He doesn't even care about his own self-preservation. For that matter, makes you wonder, why was it so hard for Ethan or anyone on his team to take him down? Ethan is both the leader and the pack animal of the team. He's out doing all these ludicrous bits because he's got to. He's the team leader, and all responsibility falls on him. When you look at it that way, it's a pretty circular way of thinking. Especially when he volunteers to Spider-Man his way up to the server room. He really didn't push back hard, but just accepted it in a sort of messianic way, which piqued my interest because it's a pattern of behavior he exhibits time and time again. My huge pet peeve about Ethan Hunt is that he acts like he's the only competent one in the Impossible mission force, and he takes it upon himself to go out and save the world all on his own while his teammates bicker. Now granted, whenever your teammates start acting like children, you do act like the grown-up in the room and get everyone back on track, not storm out and act like the Lone Ranger here. He takes on these tasks and suffers bodily injury over and over again, almost like self-flagellation. Like, if he shoulders this task, then he can feel good about himself. Ethan and his IMF buddies cannot catch a break. So many mishaps just happen to them, it's comical. As much as we want to mock James Bond for having things go smoothly as a martini, there's an appreciation for when things do go smoothly and the hitches are kept to a minimum. But here, they're dialed to 11. Whether it's Ethan having to climb with one working magnetic glove, a busted printer, a team member who wants to debate moral philosophy while the fate of the world is in the balance, or a massive dust storm, it's like anything that can go wrong in this movie does. Honestly, I wonder how it is they even accomplish their mission given the amount of hiccups that occur throughout any of these films. It's more down to luck than anything else. I would have thought there'd be one Mission Impossible movie where Ethan fails and the world gets blown to smithereens and he just mopes around, alternating between contemplation and self-abuse. But, to be fair, there are moments where they're cutting it close and it barely works. Barely. There are some hitches that end in a pretty satisfying way, the big one being when Morrow falls out the window after getting into a scuffle with Carter. I gotta say, Paula Patton did a good job in the movie, which is a shame we didn't get to see more of her in subsequent films, instead rotating through the likes of Hayley Atwell and Rebecca Ferguson, both of whom did phenomenal jobs in Fallout, Dead Reckoning, and Final Reckoning, but Paula as Carter could have seen her role expand a lot more had they rolled the dice on her and gave her more screen time. Hell, had she been the one to get croaked instead of Ilsa, that would have been far more impactful on Ethan. But what's done is done. And knowing that her soon-to-be ex-husband Robin Thicke would totally humiliate her with that unfortunate display with Miley Cyrus, all I can say is, you go girl. I mean, seriously, when he totally wrecked things over, Robin Thicke actually recorded an album called Paula. Let that sink in for just a sec. He recorded an album named after his estranged wife with the hope that it would smooth things over with her and all would be forgiven. But when you do something as messed up as that, boy oh boy, you better have a good attorney ready. Cause nobody ever come back from that with their skin attached and their crown jewels intact, is all I'm saying. Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol is a 2-hour-long action thriller. It's also the seedbed for what we'll see in the last 2 movies of the franchise, especially when it comes to nuclear annihilation. Some sort of figure with a god complex who is a bit genocidal in his thinking, and a protagonist who just exhibits reckless behavior to the point of intentional self-harm. Would we really have Dead Reckoning and the Final Reckoning in its present forms without Ghost Protocol leading the way? I think so, because either way they would have leaned into that whole nuclear annihilation motif to emphasize the gravity of the situation and the level of power the villain wields, as if trying to one-up Marvel by having their own Thanos-like character, more like Ultron, when you consider it closely. Anyway, Ghost Protocol certainly started the narrative arc that would carry on until 2025, but a part of me wishes she had just told individual stories in each movie without a continuity thread. This was at a time when Marvel Studios' gameplay was starting to catch on, so maybe the studios figured it'd be cool to imitate, but it can box you into a corner because you're limited by the story's direction in an attempt to be consistent. Thankfully, Mission Impossible had the decency to call it quits when they did and let Ethan hunt right off into the sunset to go do whatever it is he does. Marvel, you're taking notes. Get the hint. Merry Christmas, everybody, and have a safe and happy New Year.